Welcome, everyone. Before we get started, I'm sure some of you have some keywords that you're probably struggling with. So pop them right in the chat window, and we can start looking at those keywords. Only if I could understand German, I would love to do it. The next time we'll get someone to do German. All right, Dewey. Cybersecurity training. That's interesting. Vision boards, making suing patterns. Wow. Okay. All right. So there's a few over here. We'll look at making suing patterns and cybersecurity training both. Click fraud prevention. Sure. Why not? Okay. All right. So hold off on all the new keywords now. We have enough to work with for this webinar. Just letting a few more people in. Seems like we have lots of people today. Sounds good. All right. Let's get started. And I will start with the cybersecurity training. And we'll go through a quick process of creating outline very quickly. What I really want to show here is a deeper dive on how we can build out sections and content using concepts and methods, and any tools around creating content first. Okay, let's get started. I'll start sharing my screen. Okay, I believe it's visible. Let's just adjust it a little bit. Okay, all right. Cybersecurity training. Let's get started here. I always like to do a quick research on related keywords. Training in cybersecurity training. Okay, it's there's high competition for it, but sure, we can create content around this. Okay, let's give it a couple of seconds here. Okay, get the best security training, introduction, theory, practices, and resources. I kind of like this. It's more inclusive, but best cybersecurity training. Okay, now it makes more sense. Let's click next. Generate meta description. Okay, I don't have an 18-pack book over here, but I sort of like this with a little twist here. It could be in your company, so I really don't know like how it affects it, but you can make those small adjustment here and then move to the next step. Let's generate title concepts. Okay, it's taking a couple of seconds. All right, there we go. Okay, this is going to be challenging. So it's training, right? And cybersecurity, again, is a very broad term. We already saw that there's tons of competition for it. So in order for you to rank for this particular keyword, what you're really going to have to do is create a power page, talk about lots of details around cybersecurity, maybe best practices, certification, training, cost of training. There could be many things, right? So let's start quickly going through this. There's Microsoft certification, lab time, expert instructions, cybersecurity course curriculum. Okay, this sort of makes more sense. Like if I have a course curriculum or a training curriculum, I can add all of those other things as sub bullets in it. So we could talk about something like this. Let's open this up so we can see. Okay, training courses. So that makes sense. Okay, so we're not talking about courses, right? Like you probably want to sell a course. So you could mention some other courses that people can do for free, maybe on Udemy or Coursera, but then you can say that the course that you really have is better and more in depth and provides a different set of values. That is how I would lead this particular topic. Start with like, so if your users are looking for courses, they are going to come to your page. They'll see that you only have one courses. You don't have a list of courses that you're talking about, and they might bounce, right? So it's really important to keep that user intent in mind. And before
interject for a second,
go ahead.
The user intent, typically this is someone looking for a job or looking to get promoted. You know, no one wins the lot, or no one says if I win the lottery, I'd go back to school. It's always a means to an end. In other words, people like going to Hawaii, but they don't like getting on an airplane. The intent is either to get a job or to get promoted. So I hope that helps in terms of.
No, absolutely. So you're talking about the end user who's actually like, you know, why are they looking at a training course at all, right? What I like, that's one intent,
Exactly.
And that's true, right? Like you need to be talking about why someone needs this course and how it can help them in their career. But what I'm also talking about is courses. Like, so when you search for, let's say, cybersecurity training courses, I tend to notice, like, if I was searching for courses or if I was searching for dog collars and not just the collar, right? Like it's collars, tend to be scanning for things which have listicles, right? And it's just like how wired individuals are now when they search for certain keywords. They're just expecting that information out there. So sometimes it makes sense that when you are including some other content, which is okay, right? Like if you have your powerful course which helps them in their career, it's great. That's your final pitch. But it's good to educate the users and let them know that, hey, if this does not fit in your budget, here are some other free courses that you can take. That way you are scrubbing away some of your risk from having those people bounce off when they're already looking at your content. Does that make sense, Dewey? Maybe
Yes, got it.
okay. All right. So this is one thing that we put together, and let's just go through some other things, right? So you could say, why is cybersecurity important? What is cybersecurity? Training course objectives, right? So here's where we can talk about, you can get a promotion or a job with a better pay. Prerequisites for this course. Maybe you want to talk about the prerequisites of your courses. So you could add some of this information here. And mind though, right? Like this is a training course that you are creating. So relying heavily on SERP data is not advised. Here you'd need your own research or your own set of information that you can feed the AI to create content upon. Okay, so we have some here. Now let's just arrange it. What is cybersecurity should go up first? Why is cybersecurity important? Objectives and the training course or prerequisites. So this is something that something like this, right? That you'd create content around, but make sure, right, like go through your SERP outlines and see that you have everything that people are looking for, you have included. And this is like tons of training material. Like, look at this. So this is what I was saying. When people are looking for training courses or cybersecurity training, which is like a broad term, right? If you try to be more specific, you'll rank for a specific keyword, but not that broad keyword. So here, talking about many different training courses, or how it is relevant to what they do, and maybe some sort of segmentation in that will help you rank for it. And again, right, like there's so much competition for it. There is people advertising on this particular keyword. So even if you put lots of effort in ranking for this particular keyword, there's huge ROI in doing that as well, but it's going to be a little challenging. Okay, let's go ahead and click create sections and outlines.
Okay, just a question on that. Would you recommend getting more specific, like doing, say, cybersecurity training for beginners,
Exactly.
and then just go after something that it's a big market, but it's not as wide as cybersecurity training? I mean,
Yep.
Would you recommend just cybersecurity training, or do you think cybersecurity training for beginners might be easier to rank for? What do you think?
For beginners would definitely be easier to rank for. Like, I'd still have to do the SERP analysis and see what sort of content is ranking or what sort of players are ranking for it. Again, that's like a secondary part. But yes, long tail keyword, you'd have easier chance of ranking, and it's going to be less time for you to create that content. For cybersecurity training, like this very broad keyword, yeah, an 8,000 volume with competition of 91, I'd really need a pillar page that can literally beat out my competition, even if they have a little score. So this is probably like a government site, but yeah, it's gonna take some time to outrank it, even with much better content. That's not what I'm not saying is that it's not possible. From the looks of it right now over here, I know I can create 100 scoring document if my DA was good. Like, look at this DAs, right? Like insane IBM knowledge. Like, it's gonna be difficult to rank here. But if my DAs were close enough, and I create 100 scoring document, sure, I can outrank those guys, no problem at all. Better content will always win. I'm not saying it will not win again, but it's going to be a tougher bet. So I'd say go for that long tail keyword. Be a little more specific as you can, and it's nothing to lose, right? Like, even if you get 700, I mean, let's say you get 16% of 700 visits and 1% or 2% of those people still convert into training courses. These are expensive courses. This will yield good money. But yeah, go after that long tail keyword when the niche is super competitive. Okay. All right. So we're here, and I just wanted to show this quickly, but we can go back to our sections. Okay. So what is cybersecurity? Let's get started here, right? Like, so first thing first, we need to write an engaging introduction with a hook, right? Like, it needs to get the users hooked into why they should be reading this. And Dewey, something mentioned, you mentioned that this is someone who's looking for a better job, right? So my tone and my audience is going to be catered for that, towards that when I create my introduction so that I can keep them engaged. Okay, let's say the tone, expert, expert trainer, expert course, expert trainer. Okay, I will go to methods now and find some methods here. Oh, sorry, not that. Introduction. Let's look at the public introductions. Okay, there's introduction using keywords. There's a brilliant introduction, which is a little creative in what it can do. There is a problem, agitate, solution, sort of an introduction. And if you see all of these things, besides this first introduction one, is going to have sort of a hooks, right? This is before, after, bridge. So we'll look at all of these introductions one by one. Okay, let's say for cybersecurity, I just want to say engineers. Okay, so if you start typing in, it will automatically pull out details from clusters and related keywords data. So let's say engineer, security engineer, challenging is something that I want to talk about. And okay, this is good for me. I can say command. Okay, so it started building out an introduction that you can then build upon. So it's also starting up with a hook, right? Cybersecurity is a fast-growing industry that's changing the way we live. A massive amount of data is now being shared on the internet, and companies are increasing their use of it as well as reliance. So, and that's why we might have a problem. So, however, the industry is still in the infancy. I'm not sure if that's true, but we're also trying to figure out how to navigate this uncharted waters. And so then you can keep writing for you. So this is very open-ended introduction, and that's why it has certain limits on how much it can write. So we looked at this. Now let's look at the second one as well. Now this is sort of creative. When I commanded, there you go. So see, it's taking the tone that we gave it automatically from write for me, and it is creating an outline based on that tone. So it's trying to sound like, as a cybersecurity expert, we mentioned that we wanted to be, sound like a cybersecurity expert. So it started with that. And then it's going into, if you're still just getting into this profession. So it's talking about that things, right? Like how you can leverage this to better job opportunities. Okay, let's try this third one after that. Now this can give you more granularity. So past introduction is problem, agitate, and solution. So it's going to start with a problem, then it's going to amplify that problem, and then it's going to provide a solution. So it keeps the user engaged into coming to that solution, and the solution is going to be the later part of your article. So when I command it, it's going to ask me for audience. Now my audience is better pay. Okay, there we go. You can remove this. Okay, and adjust maybe, right? Like 5, not 10, and whatever it is, right? The world is changing, like a cybersecurity, something that doesn't need any experience beyond what's mentioned here. Let's get started. So I don't know if that's true. If it is not, just to go ahead and generate a second one. There you go. And some users, like, I just like generating a couple of, at least 2 that I can pick the best out of. So clearly the second one is much better, and we can pick that. So let's pick that. And we'll still have to create one more. So BAB blog introduction. Okay, let's try this one out. So BAB formula is a framework you may use to arrange the text in your email marketing campaign, but we have modified it for introduction. So when you click on it again, better pay, and click command. Okay, it did not give the bridge, so we'll just command again. There we go. All right, so this is also sort of starting with a hook. It's explaining the situation before, it's explaining the situation after, and how you came about after is what the bridge is. So even this is super engaging, and you can modify a little bit to fit to what you are trying to write, in this particular topic, and move on from there. So, okay, I really like this. I'll delete this for right now. So there's different use cases for all of these, and you can choose what best fits for the kind of blog that you're writing. Okay, let's go to sections now. What is cybersecurity? So here, sure, let's generate some ideas first, and then we'll compare it with a couple of different kinds of output. Okay, this doesn't really explain what cybersecurity is, right? So the data that we're pulling it out from probably has this information in their introduction. That's okay. what we can do here is, so for a general topic like this, what is cybersecurity? You can use GPT-3 answer engine with some trained data set to generate an answer. And when you create this answer, you'd see that the amount of characters that it outputs and how precise this data is based on the training from people also ask box and feature snippets. So by answering it this particular way, you are improving your chances to rank for people also ask boxes. Okay, so what is cybersecurity? That's what we said. And then we can start talking about some of these things. So, okay, these are some statistics. There we go. And this is something that you probably want to highlight, right? So that, okay, we can probably summarize these two particular concepts, and you could summarize them separately as well. There we go. So we have a good understanding of what this particular topic should cover, and then we can move on to the next one. Why is cybersecurity important? This is great, right? So we don't need this information here. Cybersecurity talent, but testers for security. Okay, what you can also do is like, let's compare this output with another variation. And another variation is related, right? So sometimes what happens is that you're talking about a very specific topic, but the data where you are mining this information from is very general, right? Or it has lots of other information which is not related. So we've added this particular template here, and this will generate ideas which are more relevant to why is cybersecurity important. And I don't advise using this in all cases. This is a specific case where you'd want to use this. Okay, so okay, this is where we start. Cyber attacks are becoming more and more frequent. So it's, again, tying it back to why is it important, can come from anywhere. Professionals need not understand the technology fully to break it. It's important for protecting your company from human exploits. Increased security is obvious reason why all businesses should have employees at level learn about cybersecurity. Why is it important, right? So it's going into those details. So now let's delete the top ones, and you can start building your content for why is it important based on this. Okay, we don't need to actually copy and paste it. Well, we don't need this. This could be the second paragraph. We're much focused on, well, sometimes it will give you this. But okay, so right now we're focused on creating the first draft. So the way I approach to content is get all my ideas in, and then once I have the first draft, I go and start refining them. There we go. And maybe that. Because it's mostly related to it, when we tie it in and when we start writing it, it's going to tie it back to why cybersecurity is important to the title as well. So it'll make sure that it stays on track. Now, this is how we go about creating some really good content for cybersecurity. And let's see prerequisites for the courses. This is where you'd probably want to enter your own custom concepts. I know very little about cybersecurity like Dewey does, but I would enter my own prerequisites for this course if someone has given it to you, or you know what you're writing around, right? Like I think you'd have some sort of brief that you can dump in here and come up with prerequisites. So again, right, like if you have content which you don't know where a specific information belongs in that particular content, you can come here, dump it in, and then find related information. And this will scan through that information and give you mostly related stuff to prerequisites of that particular course. But yes, you need specific information that you can plug it in and have the AI pull out information from. Okay, this is how I'd go about creating this particular piece of content. There's going to be tons of information here in this particular section where you'd really need to talk about everything that a user can potentially be looking for in a training course. And these are some of the details that you could be covering in your course, or it could be your curriculum and information like that. And then maybe at the end, have a call to action, take them to a place where they can purchase this course, learn more about it, maybe see some testimonials, or just try free, right? Something like that. So I hope this helps. And if no questions here, we can move on to the next one.
This is great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Was this helpful for others too? This is a very nuanced topic, right? Like it's going to be difficult to find factual information from GPT-3 alone with the methods that everyone else is using to generate content from thin air. It's going to be really difficult to stay on track and find out all of these information, whether you need HIPAA, PCI compliance, SOX. Like this is important stuff, right? For security. Most of this stuff might or might not be missed out, but that's a risk that you take with GPT-3. So this is a better approach in creating factual information and stuff that can actually help you rank. Okay, let's go to making suing patterns. And this is so not my topic. Okay, search for that as well. Paper for making suing patterns. So clearly people are looking for paper here. Making suing patterns to sell. Okay, so I will choose this keyword, but there's no search volume. Like there is some related keywords to it, but there might not be very much great information out there. So we'll just have to see and figure it out. Okay. It's gonna take a few seconds. If any of you guys have questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop a question in the chat. Happy to answer it while this thing is doing it. Okay. I see lots of new faces today. Wow, it's taking longer than usual. While it's doing it, we'll get started with another keyword as well. Okay, there we go. Let's generate some title ideas. How to make a suing pattern, introduction to suing patterns and terminology. I am not sure if people are interested in terminology, but suing patterns, 100%. Making patterns, introduction to pattern making with the no suing patterns, eight steps to DIY pattern without pattern. Patterns without pattern, that sounds interesting. How to make suing patterns, 5 quick steps for making suing patterns. This is something I really like, okay. Maybe you can change the steps from 5 to 10, depending on what you really have in mind. Okay. This sounds tips and tricks in making suing patterns. Okay, sounds good. Let's generate section concepts, and I will get started with this one as well simultaneously, and we'll come back to it. Okay, steps of suing pattern. Drafting a pattern using your measurements, making templates from clothing. Makes sense. Okay, what is a pattern? That makes sense. Tools for making a pattern. That also makes sense. Pattern drafting software, amazing. If you're writing to sell something or get affiliate sale, this would be a very good topic to add. How to resize a suing pattern. Okay. Methods for, oh wow, okay, this is really good content. How to make a suing pattern. Is that something that we have? No, we don't have that yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and arrange that. What is a pattern? Oh, sorry. There we go. Taking a delay. Tools for making a pattern. Steps for suing patterns. Pattern drafting software should probably go up here. Okay, all the suing patterns can go up. Method and how to make a suing pattern and methods for suing pattern, sort of the method for pattern making. Okay, tools for this can go probably up here. Okay, all right. So I think maybe this is something that we can go after. If you want to add some books related stuff here, you can also do that. Keep this in mind as well. This probably does not make sense here, so we can move on from it. But let's see if there is something around this. Best paper for making suing patterns. This is something that you'd probably want to put this in tools. So best paper for suing patterns. So somewhere here, right? Like you can optimize this particular heading to have best paper for making suing patterns and adjust it a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and see some SERP outlines. Tips, method. Okay, there's another method here, and we have a method steps for suing pattern, and feel free to add stuff that you feel might be important here. So you could open this up, delete this out, and then just drop it in here. Or this is a method, right? And this is a step, but just to keep an eye on your SERP outlines as well. Make sure that you have a very good outline and which is inclusive of what others might be talking about. You don't want to probably miss out things that might help you rank for some other long tail keywords. Then just quickly go through Google Pi as well. How do I print a PDF pattern? What is a PDF pattern? I would add FAQ section, add probably all of these questions. I'm pretty sure people are printing this in a PDF and they have just questions around this. You can get some quick wins by answering all of these questions, at least the ones that make sense as an FAQ section at the very end. So just kind of click a FAQ, open it up. Now let's start adding. This is okay. This is gonna open it up and start adding them in. Admit. Okay, so start adding them in and just create like an extended list of FAQs that you can answer to the user's question about patterns. Okay, sounds good. No problem at all. I hope that she finds this useful when we're done with this. And feel free to ask any questions on behalf of her as well. Okay, so we have our outlines set up sort of, right? Like there might still need be a little bit of work remaining based on your knowledge. Mine is very limited here, but create the perfect outline. Once you have it, start creating with start going to methods and coming up with an introduction. Public. Let's start with, let's see what we have here. We can say pattern making tutorial, sewing patterns, pattern paper, maybe software, certain things that you want to talk about in the first paragraph. And you could be the best judge for that. But all you have to do is just command from there. So let's see what happens. I will use this on the highest setting. Okay, we'll command it again. There you go. So it runs 3 times, right? So if you want longer outputs for open-ended content generation, then you can change your settings to high, and that means it'll give you higher output for certain methods only. Some of these other methods are totally different and they're approved differently, so they have longer outputs based on their use cases. Okay, so you can start creating your outline based on some of this information here. Like I said, again, I really like my my introductions to start with a hook. And a hook is something that's like catching them, right? Like making sure that they're sitting where they are when they're reading this and they continue to read through our content. Yes, absolutely, Dewey, right? Like, and I think you can be really creative with it. So like, let's say, just like talking about creativity, right? Like sewing patterns. Why does someone need to sue, right? So like we could say in a tone of mother with newborn, right? Like that's how creative you can be. And this is why, like, you know, the output set will come out with different methods. It's going to be significantly different. So let's go ahead and create this. Look at that, right? Like I never thought I'd be a mom, but when your husband and I decide to have children, we face this decision: how are we going to make our first baby? Okay, I don't think they needed to decide that, but it was quite overwhelming process and blah blah blah. And it's trying to get into that story, right? Like this is where the hook starts for. Like obviously you're gonna have to make some adjustments to this, but again, right? Like it's talking about the first baby, making her clothes. It's like, you know, it's like make up story, right? Like you can make up story, be as creative as you want with this introductions. This is what I really love. Like just start with 2 or 3. I mean, I'd try all 4 and just pick the one that I really like. Okay, let's start here. So who you're writing it for? So you're probably writing it for other moms, right? Like, or sewing patterns, like people who are bored, you could say, or you could say newborn babies, or moms who live in, or like someone who's facing harsh winter, you could say, right? Like it could be many use cases to find a new hobby. I mean, it just could be many different audiences that you could be writing for. So be a specific, be creative, and it will really give you some creative information. So you could say as a new hobby. Okay, we'll try again as well. There we go, right? So pain, agitate, and solution. So let's delete this. It's quite short. Okay, all right. So this is sort of starting to get engaging, and it's interesting too as I read through this. But make those adjustments and start writing your introduction, and use a hook when you're writing introduction. Super important to write a hook when you're writing an introduction. So choose the methods wisely. Okay, let's go to sections. And then we can say, what is a pattern? This could be something that GPT-3 can give us. We'll generate some concepts, but we'll also try GPT-3 for answering it, right? And so we can compare the outputs that factual information is giving you versus what GPT-3 is giving you. So let's go ahead and copy this in. Let's say pattern is a template that is made off of tissue paper. Sewing pattern comes with making them tells which part goes where. This is sort of good. Okay, all right. So let's compare this with this. This probably wouldn't be fair because it'll not give the same size of output, but we'll see. All right, we can compare, right? You could see this is not a tissue paper. Okay, okay, so the research is saying based on tissue paper, right? So if it was actually made from tissue paper, GPT-3 would fail and this would win. But again, if the facts over here is a little different than that, then I would suggest you go ahead and edit the tissue and make it some other kind of paper or cardboard paper or whatever it is that you're working with, right? So this is how like different they both are. This is going to talk about research that we found from data, and this is going to talk about what it already knows and what it thinks it's probably the right thing to give you. So two very different things, and that's how you start building out your content. You can pick a few more and start summarizing them. Yep. And feel free to exclude the ones that you don't think are essential, like this one might not be the good fit. There we go. I'm not sure why it started with a pattern. Okay, do you have a list of what the icons mean? Most of these icons, like if you hover over it, they'll tell you what they mean. We don't really have a glossary yet, a tooltip. Yeah, some of them have tooltips, some of them have tooltips missing. We're working on adding more documentation. We're also working on changing the UI significantly. It's super easy for you guys to figure out where things are and how they work. Look out for some of this enhancements in the next release later in December, but we'll have a comprehensive guide inbuilt into the product. That way it's super easy for you to find new and old ways of doing things. Okay. Let's go ahead, and we're also working on an extended documentation, which will have all of these. Yeah, I understand that it's not exactly super easy because you'd have to jump hoops and look at a different page. But in term, we're doing that. And then the broader goal is to have all of these utilities inbuilt into the platform. Bold italics and stuff, right? Yeah, that's also part of the roadmap. You can convert H2 to H3. That's, you mean like H2 to H3? Yeah, that would be a little, it would be a little different. Like, so where do you drag it, right? Like if you want to make it an H3, you have to drag it into a particular H2, and it's working right now as well. So let's say I don't have any hierarchy in here. I can drag this in. So you can convert this into an H3. Oh yes, so over here as well, you can easily convert this into an H3 if you wanted to. So this is H2. If you click it, it'll become regular. If you click back, it'll become H2. You can convert this into an H3 by clicking on it H3. Hope that helps. Okay. All right. So similarly, right, like you could icons in the toolbar. This toolbar right here, if you can be a little specific, at the bottom to the left. You mean here? This is to the left. This is to the bottom. I don't really know, like on the, like, can you give me an example of toolbars like this right here? This right here? Got it. Okay. So this is a content rewriter for second grader. It will change your content and rewrite it for second grader. This will expand, and there's a limit, right? So it's not going to let you expand more than 120 characters. This is shortened. So you click on it, it'll shorten it. I'll try to shorten it. Let's try again. There you go. It's going to try and shorten it. Let's go ahead and change that. Then this is instruct command. That means you can instruct it to pretty much write anything for you. Right. So let me cover this. I was just trying to read some questions over there. But okay, so this is rewriter. This will shorten the text. Let's see. And you have to select less than 200 characters to shorten it. So that's why I selected this one, and we can shorten this. And you can also expand some text. So let's say key patterns for fabric. This is not a perfect example. You need to have a proper context in place in order to expand the sentence. You could say the key steps involve cutting out patterns from fabric. I can say the first and put a full stop to it. And then I can probably expand it to have a better result, because it's inclusive of everything that I could be probably talking about. There you go, right? So it can start building out your content based upon that. Okay. Then the last option is instruct, and now let me show you. So you could say, I don't know if this makes sense or not, but here you can select this and you can say instruct, like go find it, right? So pattern, and I said list of things. So I'm going to put one here. So it goes really and finds a list. There we go. And you can instruct it. Right? Like a shirt can have a pattern, a skirt can have a pattern, like it's just random stuff. But So instruct is more like you asking the AI to go and write anything, follow specific instructions, or create any kind of content that you want. It can also read through 600 characters above where you are instructing it from. So yeah, those are some basics of it. There is a guide on how to write with AI and how to use instruct command on Outranking blog. Okay, let's read some questions here. If we have many facts on the article, say like personal finance niche, should we paste the concepts or summarize the concept? Which approach is proper? So it really depends, right? Like what do you mean like when you paste the concepts, right? So let me delete this and let's generate this concept right now. Okay, so this is like tons of information, right? That it gave me. Now you're asking whether it is advisable to use this as is, as a list, or maybe summarize the concepts, right? If I understand that correctly, I would say like you really depends, right? Um, if you are like, let's say your H2 says step-by-step instructions on making patterns. In that case, you need steps, right? And if you choose the steps feature or the step concept template, what it's going to do is it's going to try and come up with the content in terms of steps already. So you can use that as just a list. But let's say if you wanted to write something more sort of a paragraph, then I would suggest you build out the concepts and develop based on summarized concepts. Okay, the next question is from Dewey. I want a list of salient points to use to make an infographic. How would you suggest using Outranking to make a list of bullet points from the data I give it? I was thinking listicles, but cannot remember how to make that. Okay, so yes, you can convert. I don't know how you would do that. It's a very different question, right? Like it's about an infographic. An infographic can have many things. Like it can have an umbrella, it can have bullets and some description. It could be many things, right? So if you're brainstorming ideas, I think you can use one or the other concept templates to come up with some precise information from it, like benefits or disadvantages. But I'm not sure how you would go about doing an infographic
I'm
at the current
thinking,
moment.
I'm thinking, how do I make just a bunch of, take like a paragraph or two and just pull out bullet points, and then I can do the rest. So let's say, for example, I want to, instead of writing a bunch of verbiage, I've got a question: what's the difference between agile and scrum? And I want to, instead of something very wordy, if I've got the bullet points, I can then convert that myself to an infograph. So how to make my question simple? I've got a couple paragraphs. How do I pull out? Is there something I can use in Outranking just to pull out the bullet points?
So yes, okay, that would make up for a very interesting method, as well as a template, a bullet point. The challenge here for this bullet point is that the content can be very nuanced, right? So let me think about this. Maybe we can add a concept template that kind of gives you bullet points of the content that it's reading and not concepts from it. It's slightly a little different. I'm sure we can put something together. I think this would be very useful. I'm gonna add this to roadmap. I'll try to get one of these methods up during the weekend. It should be pretty easy to do. It just we have to do some tweaking to make sure that we're extracting the exact content that we need from all sorts of data and not just a couple of paragraphs. So if you have an example and you can forward me, that would be great. If not, I'd happy to look, myself and.
All right, I'll work on something and send it to you to give you the idea. But see, I'm also thinking the big picture. You're making this wonderful large article. People will look at this big page with 9,000 words and they're intimidated. But if you've got some nice pictures and infographics breaking it up, then your page is going to be a lot more attractive. People will stay at it longer. And sometimes these questions people have, if a visual is a much better way of answering it for them than several paragraphs.
I agree. I love bullet points. They're more readable too, more digestible. So translate that into an infographic absolutely works. Okay, all right. I'll get that up over there. Let's move to the next question from Valerie. On the bottom left toolbar to the right for me, your says 524 words. Mine does not have a word count there. There's nothing to the right. Okay. I know that's the reason. So just watch my screen. What's happened, right? What's happening? Your screen size or your screen size is either too small for that particular element to fit in to show you, or your resolution is too large and it's not fitting it. So it's either or. Look at this. When I make the screen smaller, it's gonna disappear, right? Like this is how big your screen is right now, and that's why it's not showing it. Or you have a larger screen, but you are like very zoomed out, and that is why you're not seeing it like this. So what you can do to see it is press Control and minus. There's a minus sign in the keyboard. Just press Control minus, and it will move like back and forth, like zoom in or zoom out, and that should solve the problem. Okay, what people are asking is similar to what I think the fact should do or the fact should do, rather than give me questions. I do not understand that question. Kathy, if you can rephrase it. Wouldn't that be the listing steps or a list? Is it similar to what Scholar? I really don't know what Scholar C does. A better context as to what you guys are referring to would really help. Okay, while we wait for that workaround. So we went through going back to the list question. When I write a FAQ in a post, it's usually a list of answers. It's different, right? Like that's different. But when I'm writing FAQ, oh, okay. So FAQ, okay. So the FAQ concept confuses you. The reason, like, so what is FAQ concept, right? What it's going to do is the content that it reads from is going to create questions out of that. That means it's creating questions that you can answer from a given text. And a list of FAQ that you include in your blog post is still going to have the question, right? Which is probably going to be in bold or H3, H4, H5 tag, and then you have an answer underneath that. So this can actually help you do both of it, right? So let's go ahead and pick some content, and I can show you. Maybe this will help clear up some confusion. Okay, so let's say we have this information. Okay, let's go to sections. Okay, all right, so I think this is not what you're looking for. If it's any easier, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. That would greatly help. Sorry for going back to the list question. When I write FAQ in a post, it's usually a list of answers. Okay, so we answered that, got it. But I was wondering if that's why everyone wants a list or bullet methods too. I think it's serving a different purpose. The reason, like many times, you just want the content to be more digestible. You don't really need those wordy paragraphs or long paragraphs or lots of details. All you want is extracted some high level information and convert that content into bullet points. I think this really helps over there. The problem with bullet points is that it cannot include the entire concept of what the user is trying to explain, and and everything. So when I have a key point, it starts and it ends somewhere, right? But when with concepts like what we have really is that it doesn't end anywhere. It's trying to maintain what it can in order to write or build upon with with most facts as possible. So it's a little two different things. So when you're extracting key points, I wouldn't suggest you build out paragraphs from it, because you can still summarize concepts if it is generating here, but you can use them as just copy and paste to create the list. Okay, I'm on the laptop with normal resolution. This is an extra step that is tedious, and I don't want to permanently after the resolution, because I agree, right? Like, but there's just no space for it to show anywhere. So currently, this is the challenge that you're gonna face. You will probably not see this in smaller browsers, and that means like when you want to see the word count, you can either minimize it, or you can also just select the entire content, and it will tell you how many words you have. Like, so for example, this tells you how many characters you have. That's the only thing that you can do at the moment. Okay, no, not a problem. I hope this really helps, right? So like these are some really good questions around how people use concepts, how you can gather information from existing data as well. So this could really help both methods. Okay. All right. So I think we've talked enough or a lot about how you'd go about writing content with concepts, generating concepts, answering specific sections, and creating outlines around some different niches. So Any more questions, guys? Feel free to ask me. We're approaching the end of the webinar. We've about 5-10 minutes remaining here. So happy to answer any questions you guys have at this point.
Okay, it's Bob here. I got a tough question for you.
Absolutely. Love tough ones.
Click on relate. We haven't touched this on any of these instructions, but click on related keywords.
Okay.
This is the first time I'm actually seeing this. Now, this will allow me to optimize my titles for that particular keyword and also the content. So can you explain to me your thought process on this one?
Right. So what this really is like you have to pick and choose properly. So what this really is first research. So let's say paper for making sewing patterns, right? What you want to include this in your content. You don't know how to, or you don't know where to best find ways to include this particular content, right? So what your effort is going to be to find the nearest object that you can change a little bit or change dramatically to add those keywords in, or optimize that particular heading for related keyword. This is why we gave this. So what this will really help you do is identify if your competition is using this particular keyword and how they are using it. So if you want to use it, you can replicate, or not just copy and paste it. I'm saying to replicate the method or use it in similar fashion. If you have partially used it and you feel like, okay, methods for pattern making and paper for making sewing patterns are something that you want to combine together and rewrite this heading so you have this keywords in it, that's what you can select here and you can SEO optimize it. Most times, if it can actually, it will try and insert it or it'll just change it a little bit. So you don't really have to use it if it is not, but you can double click on it, make some adjustments and just copy directly into your editor. So the thought process is that first it helps you identify sentences, headings, or paragraphs which can be used. I said can be used to insert some keywords and optimize it further for SEO. Okay, this is all partially used. Did that explain?
Yeah, that explains it. It was one of those hidden features I hadn't seen for a while. So actually, if I click on a button and use optimize that for content, it'll actually put those keywords in for me.
Yes, it will try to rewrite it. If the meanings are closed, right, it's going to rewrite it. Otherwise, it'll give you a bunch of crap. So I've seen people literally just optimize things which are not even relevant and go from there. That will probably not work. So do the research first, look at what you can optimize, which fits the best for the keyword you want to add, and then click on SEO optimize over there.
I'm sorry, I missed part of it. How did you pull that up in order to do the SEO optimize?
So you can click on this AI icon right here, and it will pull up. And you can click this to identify the closest ones. And the same feature is also there in topic coverage. So sewing patterns, let's say a pattern making tutorial. They're using it. Okay, this is how it's being used in competition. So there's nothing to SEO optimize it here. That's why there's copy. You can just copy it and it will take it in here. Then wherever you want to copy it and just adjust it or build upon it or whatever you want with it. But this will help you figure out like all the topics that you're missing out on and best find inspirations how to include them in your content. I bet like many people missed out on this feature. It's this tiny icon. We didn't want it to take up too much space, but yeah, I hope this helps. Any new public interesting methods since last week? Not since, well, a couple actually were approved by Carol that Carol submitted. Let's go ahead and see some public methods. Some of them were added by Carol at the very end. So there's one for Amazon product review, someone submitted. Sentence improver, Carol submitted. Engaging questions, it will generate engaging questions for certain things. These are still very preliminary, right? Like F2B, features to benefit of for product, Jason did. So these are still very basic ones. What we have in next release is going to blow your mind. It's going to be more specific to the kind of pages that you build out. So this methods will automatically refine for the kind of document that you're creating for. Amazon product review was actually someone else, Abhishek. Carol built it out, sentence improver and engaging questions. Cool, sounds good. So we're at the end of it. I hope this was useful. And we'll do some more of these next week. And then in a few weeks, we'll start talking about some other types of documents that you'll be able to create on Outranking as well going in future. So sounds good, guys. Have a wonderful day. It was lovely seeing you, all of you here. and we'll see you next week. Yeah, go ahead.
Before you run, just I put it up there, that thing on SEO optimize, can you make it like a short video to throw on your, where you've got all your training videos just on doing
Yes.
the SEO optimize? Because this is like brand new. It's like, whoa, I never saw that before.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll cover a small video on how to use this particular feature.
Awesome. This was a great webinar today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dewey. Yes, James, I didn't forget about that question. Yeah, press release is going to be a piece of cake. So it's going to be many other content types that you write online for web. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful day or have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week or in the group.